Hey guys, welcome to the Property Investors Podcast. Russell Leeds here, and this week we're going to be looking at some of Dave Ramsey's financial advice. So let's jump straight to it.
David is with us in Dallas to start off this hour. Hi, David. Welcome to the Ramsey Show.
Yes, thank you, sir, for having me.
Sure. What's up?
Yeah, so just quick context. My wife and I, when we were engaged, did FPU. That was 6 years ago. We are now $5,000 away from being debt-free, aside from our mortgage.
Way to go.
Just $5,000. Yes, thank you. Just $5,000 left of my student loans.
So this is obviously a really good thing. They've managed to get almost debt-free, just $5,000 away. It's obviously based in America. Now, Dave Ramsey is really big on being debt-free. He's really anti-debt. I actually don't agree with him on this. I think that debt, just like money, is a tool that can be used for good or for bad. Now, a lot of people get into bad debt and it scares them. I just think debt can be a really, really good tool. But hey, well done him, getting out of debt. Great stuff.
Here's the thing. We're pastors here in Texas. We are moving to Oklahoma to be pastors of a church there. And what's awesome as part of the deal is we have a parsonage, so we will not have a mortgage payment there. And so my ultimate dream is that we are financially independent from the church. I love the church. I would love to one day not even have to take a paycheck from the church. And so what I'm seeing is our expenses are staying the same. Our income's actually going up a little bit with this move. And I would like to turn my house in Texas into an Airbnb property and hopefully even make income to take one step closer to being financially independent from.
Okay, well, to me, that sounds like a really good idea. So he's obviously got a home that he owns in Texas. He's moving away from Texas, and his idea is to rent it out on Airbnb, which sounds to me like a fantastic strategy.
The church. And so my question really is that a smart move, or should I just sell my home here in Texas, profit, I don't know, the way the market is right now, I can maybe profit 60, 70K, something along those lines from what I've seen. And so I'm just asking you what maybe the better or best option is.
I love your goal, and I don't dislike your plan overall. I would sell the house and move the money to Oklahoma.
Hold on a second. I love your goal, and I don't dislike your plan. I would sell the house. Wasn't the whole plan to rent the house out on Airbnb? If he'd sell the house, how is let's hear the rest.
Pile up some more cash and pay cash for your first rental in your own backyard. Airbnbs have two problems that all the people that talk about how much money they make with them don't bring up. They have three problems that people don't bring up.
Wow, every time we carry on, there's going to be another problem. Give it a minute, there'll be 4 problems, 5 problems. Every time these people don't bring up, but there's loads of problems. Be interested to hear what they are.
Problem number one, there's a ton of hassle, a lot of details, a lot of work involved in getting the people in, getting them out, getting them cleaned, all that kind of stuff. Like probably 25x a normal rental, because you'll have multiple renters in a single month, right?
I mean, I've got normal rentals, I've got HMOs, I've got service accommodation. 25x. I mean, that just isn't true. I mean, unless you're doing absolutely everything yourself. I mean, I'll be honest. I do have buy-to-let properties that I haven't spoken to the agency that managing it in years. So buy-to-lets 100% are less work than an Airbnb property. An Airbnb property is more work. There's no question about that. However, 25x the amount of work, I find, unless you were doing everything yourself, unless you were driving to the property, letting the person in, doing the clean afterwards, I can't see how it would be 25x. That seems a bit high. Let's see if he goes on to explain it, but this makes no sense to me so far.
And so you've got maid service, you've got a higher level of maintenance, you've got a lot of work involved in managing and messing with them.
Okay, this just isn't true. I mean, it might be true for some people if you're managing it badly, but if you're managing your Airbnb business properly, it is very little work. I would say each unit that I have probably takes me maybe 20 minutes a week, absolute tops. Absolute tops. Because think about it, right? What do you actually need to do to manage the property? Number one, bookings. The first thing that has to happen is they have to get booked on, right? When they do that, do they phone you up to book in? No, they do not. What they do is they go onto Airbnb or booking.com or something and they just book without you doing anything. Now you can set it up so you have to approve bookings, but most people don't. Most people just have it so it automatically books. Then you look at the payment. Do you have to take the payment? No, you do not. What happens is Airbnb take the payment and then they take their commission out, which is fair. Normally, most platforms charge about 15%. They take all that out for the effort of advertising it and for taking the booking, and then they pass the rest of the money on to you. Do you have to invoice them? You don't have to do anything. It just all happens automatically. So all that happens automatically. Now, what I would recommend you doing is getting something called a channel manager. Now, we've got loads of different channel managers. There are platforms like Avivo, Uplisting, there's loads. And what that does is it gets all your bookings in one place. Because if you're using, to be fair, if you were just using Airbnb, like this guy's suggesting, he'd actually be okay. But if you've got lots of different platforms, if you're on Vrbo, hotels.com, booking.com, Airbnb, if you're on all these different platforms, what could happen is when a booking comes in, you could get a double booking. This type of issue then starts becoming an issue because now you've got to ring up and cancel, or you've got to, when a booking comes in, you've got to quickly see it and go and put it on all the different calendars. It starts becoming a faff. If you use a channel manager, you upload it once onto the channel manager, it distributes the advert onto all the different platforms, and then when a booking comes in on one, it lets all the other platforms know that it's fully booked. So it means that you don't have to worry about double bookings, you don't have to worry about pricing, everything can all be done through your channel manager, which means all this process is no work. They will then send things like the door code, the key safe code, that all gets sent automatically. All of this stuff happens automatically. I've got Airbnb properties where people are checking in, checking out. I don't even know about it. Because the other thing is, on your channel manager, your cleaner has access to the calendar. So you find a cleaner, you give them access to the calendar, and then when a booking comes in, it alerts the cleaner. So the cleaner knows, there are 4 people coming in. I need to go in and set the house up like this. This all goes to them without you even being involved. The person checks in, they check out, cleaner gets the notification, goes in, does the clean, next. You can go months without speaking to your cleaner. You're not having to go to the property, you're not having to let people in, you're not having to do anything. So why do I spend 20 minutes a week on it? The only thing that I do, and you don't even have to do this, I do it myself because I'm genuinely interested in the properties and keeping on top of stuff. But you could even get someone to do this. But the only thing I do is I respond to the messages myself. So if a guest comes to stay at my house and they message me, many don't, by the way. Many guests will stay and not even get in touch with me ever. Obviously, they get all the automated communication go to them, but they don't even reach out to me once. But if they do, I will message them back. But you could easily get a virtual PA. You could literally have an Airbnb business where you had zero involvement yourself and everyone was doing it for you. Airbnb was taking the bookings, your cleaner was checking the property, restocking the property, doing your laundry and cleaning the property. They're basically the manager, by the way. The cleaners turn into the managers in reality. The only thing I would say is it's probably best not to have a one-man battle, one woman or man, don't want to be sexist, but a one-person band cleaner, because then if they're sick, suddenly the problem's on you. So I like to use companies that have got 3 or 4 cleaners. I find that to be the sweet spot. If you go for a really big company, they tend to be quite expensive. If you go for a company with 3 or 4 cleaners, if one of them's sick or the person who's meant to do the check-in, they can cover it amongst themselves. They don't have to reach out to you. They can get it all sorted. So I find that to be the sweet spot. They basically manage the property for you. From their point of view, it's great because you're a really regular client, more regular than a normal cleaner. And from your point of view, you're basically making a passive income. What's the definition of passive? Money that comes in with little to no work. That is passive income. And all in fact, of my Airbnb properties, you're literally talking 20 minutes property, absolute max. And even that, I don't have to do that. It could be less. So to me, this is advice from someone who A, has never done it, which wouldn't surprise me because I can't see Dave Ramsey doing an Airbnb property himself. So I think he's probably never done it. Or if he has done it, he's done it badly because he's done it himself. He's there on his hands and knees cleaning the property. It just makes no sense. It's just really bad advice, because why would you rent a property out to a normal buy-to-let tenant when you could make 3-4 times as much money renting it on Airbnb? No idea. Maybe he's about to say something revolutionary that's going to completely change my mind. Maybe he will. I doubt it, but maybe he will.
Okay, so a lot of hassle.
Could I speak?
It's not a lot of hassle. And the guy's like, can I speak? It isn't a lot of hassle, Dave.
Go ahead.
So sorry to interrupt. Can I just speak to that? I do have family here in Texas that would be managing the property.
You don't need to. You don't need family to manage the property, in my opinion. I don't think you need that.
And so I kind of have a little bit of a built-in system where
which is a
people may not.
which is a bad idea.
It is a bad idea. You don't need that. You just need a cleaner, a channel manager. That's all you need.
You're taking advantage of your family. Okay, I'm telling you, Airbnb, the hassle factor is very high. There's great money, but the hassle factor is very high. So if you want to do an Airbnb, it needs to be in your backyard. Problem number one with Airbnbs. Problem number two with Airbnbs is you have a lot of extra maintenance. People tear the crap out of your property.
All right, let's address this second one, okay? So problem number two, we've got 3 problems. First problem, by the way, problem number 1, which is a load of hassle, that just is not true. Anyone that's managed them properly will tell you that's not true. Problem number 2 is maintenance, a lot of maintenance. Now, there's a partial truth to this, okay? So there's partial truth to the fact that you do need to spend money, maintain the property, of course, as you do for a normal buy-to-let. And you probably need to keep on top of your property a little bit more than you would with a buy-to-let, because if you've got a tenant sitting in the house and they lose something, they break something, they damage something, they'll either going to sort it themselves or just leave it and just think, oh well, whatever, right? That's probably what they'll do. Unless it's something fundamental with the house, in which case they'll come to you. With an Airbnb, if something goes slightly wrong, you're going to want to fix it because you're going to want it to be at the tip-top, fantastic condition when the next tenant comes in. So there is more regular maintenance with an Airbnb property. And talking about our cleaners earlier on, part of the job of the cleaner is to let you know if anything needs changing or replacing. And then you just have a maintenance guy that goes in, sorts it. Your key safe's already there, etc. So it's not any more hassle, but it is something that you need to slightly keep on top of. However, on the flip side to that, while that is true, what that means is that your properties stay in a much better condition than if you rent them as a buy-to-let. The worst state of properties I've ever known, and you'll probably see videos like this on YouTube where people are showing you around, oh my gosh, the tenant haven't been able to get hold of them and they've just trashed the property to crap and they've gone. They're always buy-to-lets. I've never had that happen for me personally. I'm sure it has. I'm sure people have had parties and trashed Airbnb properties, but I personally have never had that. And I think the way that you market your property, the way that you advertise it, the type of property you advertise, if you're putting a massive big party house that you're advertising, it might get trashed. If you're renting out apartments and things like that are smaller, maybe 1 or 2 bedroom, it's less likely to happen. So, because that's my sort of market and what I go for, I've never personally had anyone trash my property. So, yes, there's more regular maintenance that needs to take place, which is true, but the properties always stay in a higher state of maintenance, if that makes sense, than a buy-to-let. So I would feel almost more comfortable. I'm getting regular. If you have a buy-to-let property, do you have cleaners going in 3 times a week for a buy-to-let property? No, probably never. Probably just the tenant looks after it and you're in the hands of the tenant. With this, you're in all the time. You've got your property, you've got your cleaner, your property manager in all the time, highly cleaning it, getting it back up to that pristine state. So let's say you had an Airbnb property for 5 years and a buy-to-let property for 5 years. Chances are your Airbnb is going to be in a much better nick than your buy-to-let. So there's pros and cons, but at the end of the day, you're making way more money. The only con is you might spend a little bit more on your maintenance guy. but your property's going to stay in a better condition. You're going to make way more money anyway, so who cares? So this is, in my opinion, a completely void point.
Nobody talks about that.
Do you know why nobody talks about it? Because it's a void point and it's not relevant.
That's the dirty little secret of Airbnbs. You're constantly buying carpet. You're constantly buying paint and drywall repair because they do not take it. I don't care how big a deposit you get or how much screening you do. It's not their house.
Yeah, but it's also not a tenant's house that's renting it up as a buy-to-let. It's the exact same situation. Of course, there's going to be maintenance involved. That's something that you factor in when you're working out your profits. So yeah, there is maintenance involved. But in my opinion, and I have a good opinion, in my opinion, because I have both types of properties. And in my opinion, I don't think Airbnbs are any worse or any more difficult to maintain than a buy-to-let.
And so you're going to have a high level of repairs and maintenance, which is part of that hassle factor. The third thing that nobody's talking about is several areas are now passing zoning prohibiting it.
Right.
And so if you set your whole model up only on Airbnb, you could have the rug jerked out from under you. If the only way the deal works is Airbnb, don't do the deal.
Yeah, there is that. That is a fair point in terms of it is possible you could set it up on Airbnb, and then a few years down the line they might bring in some new licensing laws. I mean, they have talked here in the UK. I can't speak for America, but they've talked in the UK about bringing in licensing. However, one of the conditions that they've said they're planning on bringing in, although who knows because we've changed government since this was announced, but one of the conditions that they said was if your property is already running as an Airbnb, you will get the grandfather right. So you will be able to carry on doing it as an Airbnb and you can move to the new use class without getting planning permission. So that's something that they're talking about here in the UK. To me, that would mean I want to do it even more. I want to lock in that we're doing it as an Airbnb. But legislation could always come in. Anything could change. Any business. You know, if you were running a cigarette business or a pub, and they might change legislation, but you can't run your business on things that might happen. You know, the saying is, make hay while the sun shines. And right now, the sun is a-shining on Airbnb. So you want to make hay right now. If you can make a load of money right now, what? In 5 years' time, they might change it. Okay. Well, for 5 years, I'll make 4 times as much as I would if I was renting it out as a buy-to-let. I'm not going to not do that because legislation may or may not change in the future. That would be crazy.
Because it might not be available to you. Now, if you want to run the hassle for the extra money and run the maintenance for the extra money, you'll make more money. But it's a lot of work. So I would move the money to Oklahoma, whether you're going to do a straight rental or whether you're going to do an Airbnb, because it's in your backyard and you're going to lay your hands on it.
It's interesting. He seems very, very keen on managing and doing everything yourself. Like, why would he want to move the property, got a property he's already got, sell that one to buy a new property near to you so that you can get your own hands into it and you can manage it. Like, I've got properties all over the UK. I never have to visit them. If your backup plan is you need to go to the property, you need to sort it out, you need to be the one on. Do you think Lord Sugar, when he owns his commercial properties, do you think he's worried that they're close to home? Because, God, imagine if there's a problem and I've got to drive there myself. Of course not. Of course he doesn't. That would be ridiculous. Now, I know you might be thinking, yeah, well, I'm not Lord Sugar. But if you're investing in a property, if your plan B is that you go and fix it, you go and let the tenant back in, guess what? You're going to be doing it all the time. What you need is a system. You need a system set up so that you don't have to be the one. You don't want to be the one that drives in the middle of the night because the tenants lock themselves out and you've got to go and let them back in. You want to get a power team. You want to get people around you that can sort that for you, that you can pay them to do that, because this is an investment. You're not trying to create another job. You've got your job, I assume, already. This is investing your money. So yeah, you might make slightly less profits by having a cleaner, by having a maintenance guy, by having a locksmith that you go and change the lock when someone loses it, or whatever it is, by having a property manager, whatever it is. but you don't want to be doing these jobs yourself. So I don't agree with that advice. Also, in general, I don't particularly agree with the advice of selling properties. Now, it might be in this case that this property is the guy's own home. But when you sell properties and then buy a new property, even if you sold the property for 300 grand and you bought another property for 300 grand, you would not be in the same place. Because every time there's a transaction that takes place, you lose money. You lose money in solicitor's fees. You lose money on paying stamp duty. You maybe lose money if you've made profit from it. You maybe lose money on taxes, on your capital gains tax. Obviously, if it's your personal name, there are exemptions for that. So in this case, he might not. But every time you do a transaction, you lose money. What would be much better instead is, rather than selling it, is if you refinanced it. Because then when you pull the money out of a refinance, guess what? That's debt. I know Dave Ramsey doesn't like debt, but when you refinance a property and bring out debt, guess how much tax you pay on debt? Nothing. You don't pay any tax on debt. So when you refinance properties, you can reinvest that money without paying tax. And that's what rich people do. They buy properties, they refinance them, pull money out, reinvest. That's using leverage. And I know Dave is very, very against that. And I know he's into, I think he mentioned even earlier, selling the property and then that's not enough because he's only going to make 60, 70 grand, right? Because he doesn't own it, he's got a mortgage on this property. So sell the property, so you've got 50, 60 grand, then save up for years and years and years, and then use that money to buy another property for cash. So all this time, he's got his 60 grand just sitting there. Now what he could be doing instead is he could keep the property. It would keep going up in value, right? He could be renting it out on Airbnb and making a fortune from it and leveraging his money while having an asset that's going up in value. But instead, Dave is advising him to sell that asset, stick the money in the bank while he saves up even more, and then buys a property close to home so he can manage it himself and do the cleaning himself and let the tenant in himself for cash. This is crazy advice. This is so, you could say it's safe, it's so vanilla-ly safe. It's ridiculous. It's not using all the tools that we have available to grow our wealth today. So I think this is horrendous advice, to be honest.
And you are a man who controls your destiny. You don't ask your first cousin to do it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were in your shoes. But I like your overall idea.
How can you say you like the overall idea when you've completely changed the plan? I like the overall idea, but do it totally different.
But let's just pay cash for a rental and go that way. Christina?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of Airbnb owners, and it kind of does feel like a part-time job for a lot of them. And
you get 6 of them, it's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for a lot of Airbnb owners, it is. I've stayed at lots of Airbnbs where literally I've turned up at the property and they're there to let me in and welcome me and show me around. I went to one at Isle of Wight. It was a lovely little barn and they do the cleaning themselves. There's barn conversion. They let me in. They're there on site. If I need anything, I can ask for them. If you run your properties like that, it's a lifestyle thing for these people because they live on site. They live in the farm. They've converted the barns. Then you're right. It's a lot of work, and for a lot of Airbnb landlords, it will be a lot of work. But for the smart ones, for the ones that know, it's the same. Tell you what it's the same as. It's the same as any business. It's like saying, I spoke to a business owner and they said that there was a lot of work. Yeah, you're right. Well, in that case, there must be no business owners that just earn money from their businesses without doing lots of work. No, that's just not correct because they've systemized it and they've got staff and they've got a team and they've got people in place and the business now runs. We all know this about businesses. Airbnb is a business. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, and I agree that having your family do that would kind of be taking advantage of them, especially if you're not paying them.
We're taking advantage of them, especially if you're not paying them. Well, if you were paying them, it's not taking advantage of them at all, is it?
They don't get a cut of that
and
profit.
If you start paying them, then the need for doing an Airbnb goes away.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a lot of mental aspects of there's a review system on there. So even with the maintenance, even with keeping your Airbnb up, you want to make sure that it's top notch because you want those 5-star reviews. If not, you're going to have a tougher time booking people and the list goes on and on. It can definitely be more of a headache. And I think your heart is with the church. You ultimately want to pour your heart into the church. That's why you want financial independence, is so that you can love on people better. And if you're stressed out by this basic other part-time job, that's not going to be the best use of your energy.
Yeah.
It is obviously an extra stress. What would be less stress is just to sell it and just focus on the church and not invest in anything at all, and just put your whole focus into the church. That would definitely be less stress. So if you want zero stress, then yeah, don't take on an Airbnb. Don't take on any property. All investments, there's going to be an element of stress. But if you're looking to invest, if you're looking to grow wealth, then I think that owning properties that we know are going to go up in value and then renting them out on Airbnb or on Booking.com or as serviced accommodation in general, right now, with the legislation the way it is a fantastic strategy. I think it's one of the best strategies that there is. The only thing that if David said, maybe you should sell that property and then buy a property that's in a bad state and you can do it up and then refinance it, pull your money back out and do it again and do buy, refurbish, refinance. That's the only thing that I would say would have made the advice even better. But again, that would have also added more stress. It depends on you, depends on what you want. If I was in this guy's position, I would do exactly what he had planned to do. The only thing I wouldn't have done is I wouldn't have got my family to do it, because you don't need to. You can set it up without needing your family to do it, unless your family are cleaners, in which case you're giving them work and you're helping their business. That's a win-win thing as well. It's not taking advantage of them at all. So I think it was a great plan. Do you know what? I've also got a sneaky feeling that he will go and do it anyway, and I think he will actually ignore Dave Ramsey's advice. But I'd love to know what you would do. What would you advise this guy? What would you do in that position? Do you own Airbnbs? Do you agree with me or Dave? Are Airbnbs an absolute nightmare, or am I right? Is it something that if you systemize properly, they practically manage themselves? Let me know in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I will see you next week.